talk and explore different ways of doing the Johnny Cash paper snare drum guitar trick. Let's go. All right, so I've mentioned before that my first concert I ever went to was a Johnny Cash concert. And in the early days of Johnny Cash, playing with the Tennessee 2 and then the Tennessee 3, in the early days they didn't have a drummer, and it was just bass, lead guitar, and Johnny Cash playing rhythm guitar. And for some songs he would put, some people said it was a dollar bill, some people say it was a piece of paper. I've seen videos of him with a piece of paper in his strings. I'm sure there's some with him with a dollar. A dollar just makes sense. But we're going to explore the 3 different ways of doing this that I think are successful on an acoustic guitar. Paper, a dollar, and a playing card. All right? So, first, the paper. You can cut this to different thickness, different widths. But the paper gets, goes under, over through the strings, right? And it makes contact with every string. So it lightly mutes all of the strings and makes it, snare drum sound. Like the bottom of a snare drum has little metal snares that rattle, all right? So you can put it here. If you mute all of your strings, you just get that snare drum sound. But I like playing chords with it, so I like putting the paper behind the sound hole so that it's out of the way of me strumming and lets these strings ring a little bit, and I can still hear that that's basically an E chord. A, B7, E. I can still hear the tonality. So if I'm playing with other musicians, we get the snare drum, but I can still play chords while I'm doing my Johnny Cash boom chicka. All right, so that's the paper. That's probably, to me, the most functional one to use. Next is the dollar. When I use a dollar, I like to pick the dirtiest, oldest dollar in my wallet so that it's nice and soft, You're going to do the same thing. Thread it through your strings like this. It's easiest to do this over the sound hole. And you can just bloop, 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 like this. Works the same as the paper. It's got a nice little, a slightly different sound. Now the problem I have with the dollar is, it's shorter than the piece of paper that I cut, right? And the dollar has a tendency to kind of move around. So sometimes if I'm using a dollar, I'll also tuck it so that it stays down. All right. To me, the dollar and the paper, kind of the exact same sound. You can scoot it around. Just the paper to me is just so much easier than using a dollar, and it slides better. You can cut it longer. You can bend it on both sides, and it'll kind of keep it so it doesn't slide up and down. A lot of times when you're doing down strums, it'll start moving up, and when you're doing up strums, it'll move down. So those are just 2 little things to do. The next trick that I really, really like is using a playing card. Now, I saw somebody do this online, and they did it like Johnny Cash, where you just stick it in your strings. Do the same thing here, weave it between them. To me, down here doesn't make a lot of sense. It's too thick and it's too thick to do this, right? In the middle, sounds great as a snare, but I can't play chords. So if I'm just using it as my guitar as a percussion instrument, this works really well. But here's what I found out. If you take this and you slide it all the way down near the bottom, and you know your barred chords, using your barred chords, you get your regular A chord, and there's not really a snare happening. But if I release the tension of this, when you release the tension and you just hit your strings, you get your snare drum. So you can control when you hit your snare based on when you're picking up your fingers for your chords. So this is an awesome trick. If you wanted the snare to go the whole time, you can leave these open too, bottom. It sounds really, really cool. So, that's a really, really cool trick that I've never done before. I just kind of, as I was kind of researching how to do this lesson, I saw somebody do it with a playing card and I didn't like it. But then when I scooted it, my wife actually came downstairs yesterday when I was playing around with this. As she walked in the room, she said, "Oh, I thought Joshua was down here playing with you." Joshua's one of my sons, and it sounded like two people were down here because we had this. The other thing I did was play like a boogie bass with it. If you do that while you strum, just an idea. Have fun with this. Have a great week. Just little tricks to, entertain yourself. Only really functional on an acoustic guitar being played acoustically. All right. Have a great week.